The throne room was drowned in a thick, suffocating darkness. Only when flashes of lightning tore across the sky beyond the tall stained-glass windows did a figure emerge from the shadows, Queen Elissara. She was pale, like marble, yet alive. Her luxurious royal gown was torn at the knees, and a golden goblet lay overturned at her feet. A dark pool of wine spread across the stone, mingling with dust. The poison had not worked. Or perhaps it had worked in a way the assassins had not anticipated. Elissara felt a cold, calculating rage pulse through her veins instead of fear. Even death was delivered to me clumsily. She whispered into the void. Her voice, usually clear and resonant, now sounded like the rustle of dry leaves. Well, we shall play by my rules. She rose slowly. Her body obeyed reluctantly, her muscles aching, but she forced herself upright. She was a queen, and if she was to face her enemy, she would do it standing. Heavy footsteps echoed beyond the massive oak doors. There were many. The guards. They were not coming to arrest her, they were coming for a body, to quietly remove it under the cover of the storm. The doors burst open with a crash. In the torchlight that poured into the hall, Captain Vokas's figure loomed. Behind him, the gleam of armored soldiers. The captain stepped forward and froze. He had expected to see a corpse, contorted in the throes of death. Instead, he met the gaze of a woman whose eyes were darker than the night beyond the window. "You're late, Vokas," Elissara said. She stood by the shadow throne, her hand resting on its back as if greeting an unwelcome guest as its mistress. The apothecary swore. The captain muttered, confused, his hand instinctively reaching for his sword. "This is impossible. Your king surrounds himself with fools and traitors. Should it be any wonder that his poison proved as weak as his claim to the throne?" Vokas collected himself. The regret or astonishment faded from his face, replaced by soldierly ruthlessness. "It changes nothing," he growled, drawing his sword. The steel rang as it caught a flash of lightning. "The order stands. If poison failed, steel will not." He advanced toward her. The tip of his sword froze an inch from her throat. Elissara did not flinch. She looked over the blade straight into the eyes of her executioner. "You think I merely survived?" she asked quietly. Elissara raised her hand and, ignoring the sharpness of the steel, wrapped her palm around the blade. Dark blood, thick and hot, ran down the metal, dripping onto the floor, yet she did not pull away. On the contrary, she pressed, forcing the captain to lower his weapon. "Kill me now," she hissed, stepping close, "and the ancient magic that holds the foundation of this citadel will vanish with my last breath. This entire castle, all of you, will be buried under stone before my body cools." Vokas hesitated. He felt the floor tremble, whether from thunder or the truth of her words. There was such wild certainty in her gaze that fear of her outweighed fear of the usurper king. "Seize her," he rasped to the soldiers, unable to strike himself. "In chains." "No need." Elissara sharply released the sword and wiped her bloodied hand on the hem of her gown, leaving a crimson mark like war paint. "I will go myself. I want to see his face when he realizes he cannot kill me without destroying himself." She walked past the stunned guards into the torchlit corridor. The queen was heading to the trial she promised to turn into her own vengeance. The sun that day flooded the capital's main square with blinding gold, a harsh, brilliant contrast to the darkness that would surround it years later. Elissara descended the great marble staircase toward her people. She was still very young then, her face had yet to know the wrinkles of betrayal, and her posture was light and effortless. The weight of the crown on her head felt not like a burden, but a sacred privilege. Below, thousands of subjects chanted her name, and she looked at them not with pride, but with deep, trembling gratitude. She saw their faces. Beside her walked Prince Adrian. He was flawless, stately, handsome, the perfect companion for a monarch. He waved to the crowd. His other hand gripping Elissara's elbow firmly. "Listen to them," he whispered in her ear. "They would gnaw the stones from the streets for you." Elissara turned to share the moment of triumph with him, expecting to see the same awe reflected in his eyes that filled her own, and froze. Adrian was smiling, yes. His teeth gleamed. But his eyes did not smile. They scanned the crowd with the cold, dead gaze of a moneylender counting coins. He saw not people before him, but resources. "Leverage, it's just nerves," Elissara told herself, averting her gaze. "He's just tired of protocol." A few minutes later, they found themselves in the cool shadow of the palace vestibule. The heavy doors closed behind them, cutting off the roar of the crowd. The silence was sudden and ringing. Elissara exhaled, feeling the adrenaline drain from her body, replaced by a faint, quivering unease. She turned to the man, seeking support, but Adrian was not looking at her. He stood in the shadow of a tapestry, leaning unseemly close to her lady-in-waiting, Celeste. The girl held a tray of wine but had forgotten to offer it to her masters. Adrian whispered something. His lips nearly touched Celeste's ear, a breach of etiquette so blatant it might have echoed like a slap. Celeste did not pull away. A deep blush of guilt and pleasure flared on her cheeks. She giggled softly, the sound of a shared secret, a conspiracy of two against the world. Elissara froze. Air stuck in her throat. Lady-in-waiting and prince consort. It was banal. It was like a cheap play. Yet the nausea rising in her throat was real. Adrian straightened. He felt her gaze. Turning, he lost control of his expression for a fraction of a second. The mask slipped, revealing boredom and irritation. But in an instant, the warmth returned. "Celeste was just telling me about the attire of the Western lords," he said smoothly, without a pause. "Quite a spectacle. It was a lie. Lazy. Insulting, transparent." Elissara shifted her gaze to Celeste. The girl stared at the floor, her fingers trembling on the stem of the glass. The queen had a choice. She could scream. Demand the truth, here and now. Tear this perfect day to pieces and see the rot hidden beneath it. But she looked at the sunlight pouring through the tall windows. She still heard the muted cheers of her people celebrating her triumph. She did not want this day to end in filth. "Yes," she said, forcing a smile that no longer touched her eyes. "It truly was a spectacle." She took the glass from Celeste's trembling hand and sipped. Along with the wine, she swallowed her doubt. She chose the illusion, unaware that in that very moment, she had signed her own sentence. In recent weeks, the palace seemed to breathe sickness. It was in the air, thick, heavy with unspoken words. Advisors who once sought her attention now vanished around corners the moment she approached. The guard changed too often. Familiar faces of loyal veterans disappeared, replaced by silent mercenaries with cold eyes. That evening, Elissara took the long way to her chambers, through the council gallery. The corridor was quiet, shadows flickering from the few scattered candles. Suddenly, she stopped. From behind the massive doors of the small hall came a voice. A voice she would recognize among 1,000. "The kingdom will fall quietly," Adrian said. His tone was businesslike, devoid of emotion, as if discussing grain supplies rather than a coup. "She won't withstand the pressure. When it's over, you will be my lawful wife, that is our agreement." A pause. Elissara imagined Celeste nodding. The girls said nothing, but the silence was agreement. The queen froze, pressing her back to the cold wall. Her heart skipped a beat, but not from the pain of betrayal, as one might expect. That pain had come earlier. Now it was something else. Suddenly, a third voice intervened, unfamiliar, sharp, like metal scraping stone. You promised the crown. Where is the guarantee, Prince? The people love her. The army hesitates. Elissara held her breath. The conspiracy was broader than a lover's alcove. Swords were involved here, Adrian replied instantly, his voice carrying a terrible, calm certainty. Her place is in legend. Mine is on the throne. Loving a dead queen is even more convenient than a living one. She will become a saintly martyr, and I, the one who avenges her and saves the state. The word struck her like a slap of icy wind. Elissara felt cold. But it was not the cold that comes with terror. It was the cold of clarity. Every piece of the mosaic fell into place, the strange glances of servants, the new guards, the whispers behind her back. She exhaled slowly. Jealousy, indignation, feminine grief, all dissolved in an instant. This was no longer a family drama. This was state treason. She did not storm into the room. She did not shout. Elissara pushed off the wall and moved silently back into the darkness of the corridor. Her steps were firm. If he wanted to send her into legend, she would make sure that legend became a curse for him.